What's up, everybody? Big Ant Fantasy Football back here again, talking some football today. We got a real fun matchup today with the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. I'm really excited about this game. Feel pretty good about it for on terms of all the fantasy matchups that I got players going. I'm excited about what they're going to do in this spot. I'm excited for some bets we got in this game. Appreciate y'all who are going to hop on this stream. Make sure to fire off any questions you guys got in the chat. If you're watching this afterwards, leave a comment afterwards on any bets you like or any bets that you ended up hitting if you're watching this after the game. Shout out any props you're looking at, what team you're looking at, and so on. But that being said, just me for now. Yash said he might slide under the stream at some point for a bit, so might have my co-host hopping on here in a couple minutes here. But that being said, just going to get right into it. So Dallas Cowboys taking on the Detroit Lions. Over-under for this one is set at 54.5 points. Detroit is favored by 3.5. You see 160 on the money line for Dallas, minus 162 on the money line for the Lions. And I included some of the public betting numbers just because I thought it was really interesting. As you guys can see, 75% of money is being put on the Cowboys as of right now. And I tend to want to agree with the public. We'll get into more of the data, but just a lot of things that I think the Cowboys have going for them, while the Lions are kind of trending down. We talked about it a bit on stream yesterday, but it feels like both of these teams are kind of heading in different directions right now, as unfortunate as it is for the Lions. As far as the total goes, we should see some points in this one. 54.5 points is a very high total. Not something that I would really want to bet, to be completely honest. If I had to pick a side, I would probably go the over. Just hope we get that shootout game script, which I can very easily see happening in a game like this. But just not something I'd really want to put my money on. Not really super confident on either side too. I like kind of playing it through a player props perspective rather than either side. But if I did have to pick a side, I think I would be on Dallas. But let's get into some more of these numbers. Starting with the injury report. For the Cowboys, they're relatively healthy, Tyler Guyton, starting left tackle, is out. They are still without Trayvon Diggs as well. Questionable, we got Malik Hooker, Jadeveon Clowney. But from the looks of it, I think both of those guys are going to be playing. So it seems like Tyler Guyton is really the only injury that we were kind of uncertain about. He's been ruled out. So that's definitely a big loss, especially with this Lions pass rush and Aiden Hutchinson in particular. We'll see if he can take advantage. As far as the Lions injury report goes, this is what is really concerning me for the Detroit side of things. We got Terrion Arnold out, who's out for the rest of the season after being put on IR, starting corner. Kirby Joseph, starting safety, still dealing with that nagging issue. He's going to miss another week. Sam Laporta and Brock Wright both out. So the starting and backup tight ends are out for the Lions. Khalif Raymond has also been ruled out. And as you can see here, a bunch of guys are questionable. We got Brian Branch questionable, Taylor Decker, Graham Glasnow, Panay Sewell, Amon-Ra. And then there's another Detroit lineman who's questionable, but it seems like from what I've been gathering, it seems like all the linemen are going to play. It seems like Branch is going to play, and I don't think that Amon-Ra suits up. And if he does suit up, I think it will do so in a limited fashion. So not super bullish on that. Hope to see Amon-Ra out there, as an NFL fan, who doesn't want to see Amon-Ra out there tonight? Just make the game environment a lot more fun, I think, but does not seem like he's going to suit up with no practice these last 2 days. Next, let's get into some trends. So the Cowboys are coming into this game on a 3-game win streak, including wins over Philly and Kansas City. The other win was over Vegas. as light of a matchup as that is. The Lions, this is the big stat that we got to keep in mind if we are wanting to fade the Lions tonight, and that is that the Lions are 14-0 in their last 14 games after a loss. And in addition to that, they've covered the spread in 13 of those 14 games. So just something we might want to keep in mind if we are thinking about backing the Cowboys. The Lions are also a lot better at home, 4-2 at home this season. Cowboys are 2-4 on the road. So that is a factor. Both of those that the Lions got going in their fashion. But as far as Dallas goes, since they've acquired Quentin Williams, their rush defense has been very good. In total 3 games, they've given up a total of 103 total rush yards to running backs since acquiring Quentin Williams, since acquiring Logan Wilson, and also since getting their stud Demario Overshawn, who's a linebacker I'm really high on, really believe in. Since getting them back, their defense has completely changed. This is now a unit that has been suddenly shifted to a very good run-stopping defense. That you're seeing a lot of 5-man fronts out of them. But because of that commitment they're having to stopping the run, it's leaving them very susceptible to the pass, and teams have been taking advantage. I'll get a little more into those numbers too. But I don't have too much to take away from their meeting last year, just because these are such different teams than what they were last year. Obviously, Dallas has added George Pickens. They've added Quentin Williams. They've added a lot of acquisitions on their defense. Offense is just playing a lot better with Javonte Williams in the mix as well, along with Pickens. And then looking at the Lions, relatively similar team, but obviously no Ben Johnson. Likely without Amon-Ra tonight, so that is not in their favor. But in that matchup last year, the Lions shredded them. They beat them 47-9, and that one was in Dallas. Goff threw for 315 and 3 touchdowns. J-Mo went for 376 and a tug. And then Dak struggled, only 178 through the air, 2 picks, CD 7 for 89. Yo, what's up, guys? Good to see you, Frizzle. What up, CJLA? And what up, Mando? Good to see you guys in here. Make sure to ask any questions you guys got in the game tonight. I'm going to get into some of my best picks for tonight if you guys hang on. Just breaking down some of the data before I get into that. Also, make sure to comment who you guys got winning this game tonight. I've kind of been going back and forth, but I think I'm ultimately leaning Cowboys. But I'm honestly, I could see it either way in this one. Let's get to this next breakdown. So now we're going to be looking at the defenses in particular. And we're going to start with the Dallas side of things because we're a fantasy football channel, right? We care about our players scoring fantasy points. So let's look at how Dallas is faring on terms of fantasy points allowed. This is a breakdown of the fantasy points they've allowed and how they rank against other opponents, or how they rank on terms of the NFL rankings. 32nd means they're giving up the most points to those positions. First being that they've been the best against those positions. And as you can see on the year, you see a lot of red, particularly to quarterbacks, receivers, running backs were getting there too, especially on the road. But we see in the last 3 weeks, things have completely shifted, right? They're still struggling to pass catchers with QBs, wide receivers still having some really, really strong fantasy performances, but they've held running backs in check. Like it said on the last slide, the last 3 weeks since acquiring Quentin Williams, since acquiring Logan Wilson, held running backs to 100 rush yards combined over these last 3 weeks. And they're ranking second best on fantasy points given up to the running back position over these last 3 weeks. So that is something to keep in mind. The way I'm approaching it is I like the Lions to use Jahmyr Gibbs a bit in the receiving game tonight. I think that they're going to struggle to pound him in between the tackles. I don't think that's how they want to use him tonight. I think they might try to get him out in space, get him on the edge, maybe throw him a screen, swing pass, give him a sweep to the outside. Something like that is going to be what they're going to have to do if they want to get Gibbs involved in this one. And I do think he will get increased receiving workload with no Amon-Ra. So I think that the way I'm approaching this is more being precautious about David Montgomery rather than Gibbs tonight with this Dallas improvement versus the running backs. And I also listed some notable fantasy performances, which just kind of backs what I'm saying about Dallas being a pretty big pass funnel. Rashee Rice, 29 points against them on Thanksgiving. They've allowed quarterbacks to just go nuts against them. 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks have gone for 24 fantasy points. We've seen some big performances from wide receivers as well. And that's kind of a mix of slot wide receivers and at your traditional X's, Z's. What up, ATL? Good to see you. Yeah, Mando, Yash should be hopping on in a bit. He said he had a pretty busy day today, so he might hop on for a few minutes, but mainly just me today holding it down. Don't know how long I'll go, but just wanted to break down this game a bit for y'all. Yeah, I like this spot a lot for George Pickens. That's a good segue into the next defensive breakdown. We got the Lions on the whole season. Lions are ranking 27th worst to quarterback points given up. They are the best against running backs on the season, 30th against wide receivers, 10th against tight ends. And we look at how these numbers change at home, and they are very similar. Still giving up a lot of points to QBs and wide receivers. Still doing very well against running backs and tight ends. And more recently, these last 3 games, it is a small sample size, but in those last 3 games, they have really struggled as well against quarterbacks and wide receivers. So I don't see that trend changing tonight, especially facing this Dallas offense that has lethal pass catchers, as we know, with George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and also with how banged up Detroit is in the secondary, with Terrion Arnold now out. You got Kirby Joseph missing as well. I definitely can see CeeDee Lamb and Pickens having a big game. One concern I do maybe have if I'm thinking about CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, prop bets sort of thing, is that on the season, the Lions have been playing a lot of man coverage, and that's why we've seen these explosive wide receiver performance, right? I think right now the Lions are second in the NFL in man coverage rate, which just fares well for wide receivers, right? It's a high-risk, high-reward style of defense where you're giving up a lot of big plays, but you're maybe limiting some of that more like short yardage stuff. But talking about the Lions and their man coverage scheme, I wonder if we see a little bit of a different look from them tonight, knowing who they're going up against, knowing how injured they are in the secondary. I wonder if we see a little more zone out of them tonight, just trying to keep everything in front with CD Pickens. So that is something to keep in mind. I doubt the Lions will just completely shift how they do things. With how Dan Campbell likes to coach, he doesn't want to back down from anybody. So I imagine we'll still see a fair amount of man coverage tonight, but maybe just not at quite the usual clip we see from the Lions. But on paper, this should be a smash spot for both Pickens and CD. All right, so I think that concludes the defensive breakdown. And now we're going to get to best bets. I got 2 best bets for this game. And we're going to start off with CeeDee Lamb over 83.5 receiving yards. He is over this mark in 5 of 8 full games this season. And his misses were very close. So 74, 66, 75. So if you are a little worried about this 83.5 line, you're feeling it's a little high, I have no problem with bumping him down to 70 yards, bumping him down to 60 yards, and getting a little bit of that reduced payout, but adding a bit of security. Detroit, as we know and just broke down, they're averaging the 23rd, or they're really struggling against wide receivers. We just looked at fantasy points, but in terms of yardage given up, they're ranking 23rd in most yards per game given up to wide receivers. The Lions play a heavy dose of man single high safety, like I was just talking about. Could see some one-on-one opportunities for CeeDee Lamb. And if he does face man coverage, I think CD would most likely get Amik Robertson, who, if you were watching the Packers-Lions game on Thanksgiving, you saw that Christian Watson touchdown he went for on Amik. Not a cornerback matchup I think CD Lamb would struggle with at all. And then, just looking at the last couple weeks, they've really struggled against slot wide receivers as well. They just allowed a massive game to Dontavian Wicks on Thanksgiving. And the week before that, we saw what Wan'Dale Robinson did with Jameis, going for a career high in yards and just making Lions made Wan'Dale Robinson look like a top 5 wide receiver that game. So it'll be interesting to see what an actual top 5 wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb is able to do tonight. Let me know in the comments or in the chat if you guys are rocking with this CeeDee Lamb 83.5 yards lines. Let me know your guys' best bets, props you're looking at in the chat. I got one more bet for tonight, and then we're going to hop on the Underdog and kind of browse through some more lines, some leans. But these are my only 2 official bets that we're going to talk about on stream today. Also have some more props in the Discord that I sent earlier this week. We're going to get to the second bet, and that is David Montgomery under 37.5 rush yards. He is under this mark in all 3 of his last games, 58% clip on the season. We just talked about how improved the Cowboys are against running backs. The last 3 weeks, only 100 total rush yards given up combined. They're limiting running backs on the ground for sure since the acquisitions they've made and since they got Overshown back. Lions, on the other hand, are dealing with several offensive lineman injuries. I think most of the linemen suit up, but heading into the game tonight, 4 of their 5 starting O-linemen were questionable. So just something to keep in mind that this line is playing super banged up, like with how good the Dallas defensive line has looked. I doubt we see the Lions kind of beat them up front tonight as much as we kind of have come to expect that out of Detroit. I think this is a spot where Dallas will put up a pretty good fight in the trenches. And then this last point is kind of more of just like this isn't a super statistically backed point, but in a must-win game for Detroit, I am anticipating Jahmyr Gibbs to just be extremely involved. It's me and Yash have talked about this on stream before, but in a must-win game, you tend to rely on your best players, right? And I think we're going to see the Lions do that with Jahmyr Gibbs. I also think that Jahmyr Gibbs' skill set just benefits the Lions more against the schematics of what a team like Dallas wants to do. We talk about how good this interior defensive line and this linebacker room has been for Dallas these last couple weeks. That does not fare well for David Montgomery, right? We know David Montgomery's not a speed guy. He's not going to be beating guys to the outside. He gets his yardage right up the gut. And I think that he's going to struggle to get those carries today. And I don't see him going over that 37.5 rush yards mark unless he breaks a big run, which we know is possible. That is the scary thing about taking a rush yards under, especially one that is low like this. But I am on board with fading David Montgomery tonight. You can run those 2 bets that I just talked about, the David Montgomery under 37.5, the CeeDee Lamb over 80.5. Combine those. I think on Prize Picks you can get a 3x payout plus 200 for just those 2 props combined. I already locked that in. Make sure if you guys are rocking with it to tail that one, bet responsibly. Let me know what you guys are thinking. We'll have one to sweat out together. But that's going to wrap up the game breakdown. Keep firing off questions. We're going to talk a little bit more about some betting props, but that is it for the official bets for the day. Man.